South Africa, a country of vast history, rich culture, and politics. But amidst its diverse legacy, some figures stand out. A man who shaped not only South Africa's destiny, but also the course of world history, from military campaigns in World War I to his role in post-war diplomacy, Jan Smuts. His legacy is both revered and controversial. Who was Jan Smuts, and how did this man rise from humble beginnings to become one of the 20th century's most influential figures? Born on May 24, 1870, in the Cape Colony of South Africa, Jan Smuts grew up on a small farm. He came from a family of Dutch descent, and the Smuts name was one that would go on to carry immense weight in South African history. Smuts was educated at the prestigious Victoria College, now the University of Stellenbosch, where his intellect quickly stood out. But he wasn't just a scholar. He also had a deep love for nature, philosophy, and most notably law. His academic abilities eventually earned him a scholarship to study at the University of Cambridge in England. At Cambridge, Smuts excelled in philosophy, politics, and law, all while being deeply influenced by the intellectual currents of the day. His time in England was transformative, but it was the unfolding events in South Africa that would soon call him home. The turning point in Smuts' life came with the outbreak of the Second Boer War in 1899. The Boer republics, Transvaal and the Orange Free State, were at war with the British Empire, which had been expanding its colonial holdings in southern Africa. Smuts, alongside figures like Louis Botha, took up arms for the Boers. His military skill quickly became apparent as he led guerrilla warfare tactics against the British. Despite being heavily outgunned, Smuts' leadership and strategic genius earned him the respect of both his allies and his enemies. By the war's end in 1902, Smuts had risen to prominence. He wasn't just a general, he was a symbol of Boer resistance. But the war also left a profound mark on him, one that would influence his views on imperialism and the future of South Africa. After the war, South Africa was a nation in turmoil, but also at a crossroads. Smuts, along with Louis Botha, played a key role in uniting the Boer republics into a single nation under British control. As a politician, Smuts helped draft the Act of Union in 1910, which created the Union of South Africa, a dominion within the British Empire. But this union was built on a racial divide, where political power was reserved for the white minority, while majority black population was disenfranchised.
Smuts also helped draft the Charter of the United Nations.
We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to reaffirm the dignity and worth of the human person in the equal rights of men and women and of nations.
But back in South Africa, Smuts' policies were anything but forward-thinking.
Internationally, Smuts was able to appeal to the best in his hearers and to draw them as allies in this great idealistic campaign for freedom and democracy and human rights. In South Africa, he always spoke with a forked tongue.
If there is one tragedy of South African 20th century history, it is that this man, with his extraordinary gifts and insight and charisma, did not use that charisma to push for a more inclusive racial vision when it could have saved the country decades of trauma and strife.
Smuts' political career began when he became the first Minister of Defense and later Prime Minister. His vision for South Africa was one of unity, uniting English and Afrikaans-speaking populations under a single national identity. Yet, Smuts was no conservative nationalist. He was an advocate for liberal reforms, pushing for progressive policies in education, infrastructure, and even civil rights, though his record on race relations was and still remains not so liberal. When World War I broke out in 1914, Smuts played a crucial role in mobilizing South African forces to fight alongside the British. His military leadership in East Africa was a standout success. He helped lead a campaign against German forces in the region, achieving victory after victory. Smuts' leadership was instrumental in the defeat of German forces, and his reputation as a brilliant strategist grew. His success in Africa earned him the admiration of British commanders and made him one of the most respected military leaders of the world.
What is probably the greatest military display ever staged in South Africa. It's a great recruiting drive. It is a renewed drive for war service.
His growing influence also brought him to the international stage. Smuts was one of the South African representatives at the 1919 Versailles Peace Conference. There, he advocated for a new world order, one built around the idea of international cooperation and the establishment of the League of Nations. At Versailles, Smuts' most significant contribution was the advocacy for the creation of the League of Nations, an organization designed to prevent future global conflicts. Though the League of Nations would eventually fail to prevent World War II, Smuts' belief in internationalism left an indelible mark on global diplomacy. His foreign policy views would continue to shape his career as he pushed for South Africa's independence from Britain, while also advocating for the broader international order that he believed could prevent war. As World War II loomed, Smuts once again found himself at the center of South Africa's fate. This time, however, his leadership would be tested in a more direct way. South Africa, under Smuts' leadership, sided with the Allies against the Axis powers.
And with this situation before us, that I now today renew my appeal to South Africans, not to rest content with the cleaning up of Africa, but to follow the tide of war across the Mediterranean to the final and decisive European fronts. Europe calls. Young South Africa, come forward and move on to the battlefronts. Unite for victory.
At the time, Smuts was Prime Minister of South Africa during the war, and while his leadership was crucial in supporting the Allied war effort, his stance on South Africa's domestic issues, especially apartheid and racial segregation, remained contentious. His strategic thinking during the war contributed to the defense of Africa, and Smuts played a major role in organizing South African forces that fought in North Africa and Europe. After the war, Smuts continued to be a towering figure in South African politics. Though his influence began to wane as more radical segregationist policies took hold, he remained a firm believer in the need for racial cooperation, though his views did not extend to full equality for South Africa's black population. Smuts passed away on September 11, 1950. He was a man who fought for unity and peace on the world stage, but struggled with the realities of racial politics at home. Smuts remains a controversial yet undeniably important figure in South African and world history, a general, a statesman, and a visionary who saw the world through both a military and intellectual lens. His story is one of ambition, conflict, and contradictions. He fought for equality on the global stage, but the same cannot be said on the domestic front.